This is a picture of the Houses of Parliament in London, England. Let's have a little quiz. 1. Who meets there? 2. What do they do there? 3. Did they help you in any way? If your answers were 1. Members of the government. 2. They represent all the people living in the country. And 3. Yes, they create laws to protect me and my family. Then let me congratulate you on getting every one of the answers wrong. Didn't do too well on that quiz? Okay, let's have another go. 4. When was slavery abolished? 5. Was slavery legal? 6. Are you in debt to a financial institution? Here are the answers. 1. The serving officers of a commercial company. 2. They think up ways to take money and goods from you. 3. No, absolutely not, they help themselves and not you. 4. Slavery has never been abolished and you yourself are considered to be a slave right now. 5. Yes, slavery is legal although it is not lawful, you need to discover the difference. 6. No. You are not in debt to any financial institution. 1. Does this seem a little strange to you? If it does, then read on. Those in power have a big secret. Paying tax is optional. Registering a vehicle is optional. Paying a fine is optional. Attending a court is optional. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Surprised? Well, try this for size. Every mortgage and loan is fully repaid from day one. You can pay it again if you want to, but you don't have to. If nobody has told that you have a straw man, then this could be a very interesting experience for you. Your straw man was created when you were very young, far too young to know anything about it. But then, it was meant to be a secret as its purpose is to swindle you, and it has been used very effectively to do just that ever since it was created. Perhaps it is about time that you learned about your straw man and how you can stop it being used against you. Knowing about it is the most important first step. You need to go on a journey of discovery, and I'm afraid that what you are about to discover is not very pleasant. However, if you decide to act on what you learn, it could change your life for the better. If you think that you are in debt, then you can get out of it if you are willing to stand up for your rights and refuse to be swindled any longer. Interested? If so, then let's start at the beginning and find out where your straw man came from and why you should care about it. It all started when your parents had a happy event and you entered the world. You don't know exactly when that was, because you were not aware of the days of the week, the months of the year, or even what year it was. Even after some months had gone by, you still were not aware of these things, but by that time, your straw man had already been created and it was being used to make some very unscrupulous people rich. None of this was your fault. It happened because your parents were fooled into thinking that they needed to register your birth and get a birth certificate for you. So, they applied for a birth certificate, not understanding what would happen when they did. Well then, what did happen? According to the local authority. 1. They lost ownership of their baby, you. 2. They allowed a straw man to be created. This is not something which they can be blamed for, as nobody told them it would, or even could, happen. Nor did anybody tell them what a straw man is or how it can be used against their baby. In actual fact, the registration is a contract and in reality, it is null and void because there was not full disclosure by the local authority, nor was there intent to contract on the part of the parents. The registering of a baby's birth actually passes ownership of the baby to the local authority, and that alone, allows the local authority staff to take the child away from the parents if they ever want to do that. This applies until the child reaches the age of maturity set by the current legal statutes. Doing that is not lawful, but after the birth has been registered, it is legal, and there is a world of difference between those two terms, a difference which it is very important that you come to understand clearly. Tricia corrects this information, stating, there is no application for a birth certificate. The state creates one no matter what, with or without any parent providing information. The paper on which they provide information is called an information sheet, not an application. The parent signs only as informant, not as any applicant. The baby is not registered at all. Only the birth event is registered, which is the birthing of the new fictitious entity name being created by the state. The state then issues you a certified copy of the original, which the state keeps as legal title to that fictitious entity name. You merely use the state-owned legal person to conduct any commerce within the state-regulated legal system of commerce, all of which is just fiction. Even when the parent signed as informant, that was not their signature they signed, but the signature for the fiction name the state owns and created after they were born. Everyone who has a copy of the birth certificate is authorized by the state to use the state property name and authorized to sign that name for that name. Everything you use that name for is all liability of the state. It is their property. They hold original legal title to it. The only reason everyone has problems from using that name is only because they believe that is their property. So they make claims to that name because of merely believing that is their property, which is actually a false claim they make against state-owned property. Anytime a claim is made in any court, the claim must be bonded or insured. So your claim becomes your consent, where you pledge your body and or property as your bond/insurance as surety against your claim. When you lose, they take your body and put it in jail while their bond created cures, or they take your property to pay your loss in court for your claim what you made. 3. If you use their property name properly and do not claim it or anything registered in that name, then they have no consent from you and no claim by you, and the state then must settle any claim against their property name. It is as simple as that. Anytime a name has a last name included, that is a fiction name. There is no last name for living men or women, only a given name, first middle. So unless there is only a first middle name where no last name exists at all, then the name is not for a man or woman. It does not matter how it's spelled at all. It only matters whether it includes a last name or not. That is what the difference between a name for a living being and a fiction name. You will not find a birth certificate that does not have a last name. In fact, no name can be the human. The human can only be called by a name. James is the name the human would be called by. There is no last name attached. The only way to properly refer to a human by a name is where you would have right, the man called by James. Man is man and woman is woman no matter what. Man is not James. Woman is not Jane. Man is only called by James and woman is only called by Jane. James Martin or Jane Martin is fiction and has nothing at all to do with a living man or woman. Of course, when one actually knows thyself, then they know all those codes and statutes, and their definitions are not important at all because they know none of it applies to them anyway. They don't even volunteer anymore as a participant to that fictitious law society because they know that it has nothing to do with them and they are not a party to it. See https://www.youtube.com/watch v equals WN2 by 746 BO, which explains this. So, what is a straw man? A straw man is a fictitious legal entity, created with the hope that as the child grows up, he will be fooled into believing that he is actually the straw man, which he most definitely is not, and pay all sorts of imaginary costs and liabilities which get attached to the straw man by con artists. Why create a straw man? The answer is in order to charge the straw man imaginary costs and penalties and fool the human James Martin into paying those amounts. These imaginary charges include income tax, council tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, road tax, import tax, value-added tax, fuel levy, loan interest, bank charges, and anything else that full-time professionals can think up and are confident that you will not notice that you never agreed to pay and don't need to pay. Legalese is a secret language invented to trick you. It uses English words but attaches secret meanings to those words with the sole intention of stopping you believing that what they are saying to you has nothing to do with the normal meaning in the English language. Their purpose is to cheat you and rob you. For example, they will say to you, "Do you understand?" In English, that means, "Do you comprehend what I'm saying to you?" And the automatic response would be yes, meaning I do comprehend what you are saying to me. But for these sneaky, underhand people have changed the meaning in legalese to mean, "Do you stand under me?" Meaning, "Do you grant me authority over you so that you have to obey whatever I tell you to do?" What makes it even worse, is the fact that they will never tell you that they have switched from English to legalese, and if that is not dishonest, underhand and unscrupulous, then I don't know what is. If you answer the question believing that English is being spoken, then they pretend that you are contracting with them to become subordinate to them. Whether or not that is actually true is debatable because that is effectively a verbal contract between you and them, and for any contract to be valid, there has to be full and open disclosure of all of the terms of the contract, and then, unreserved acceptance by both parties, and in these cases, that has most definitely not occurred. But what is the point in all this? Well, this maneuver is intended to trick you into agreeing to represent your straw man. Why? Now, that is a good question, but to answer it takes a bit of explaining, and you need to understand the overall situation. 5. All humans are born equal, with complete freedom of choice and action. If you live in the same place as a lot of other people, then there are a few restrictions which have grown up, by common consent, over time. These restrictions are for your protection and the protection of the other people living near you. These restrictions are called the law, or more accurately, common law, and they are few in number and very easy to understand. They are, you must not injure or kill anyone. You must not steal or damage things owned by somebody else. You must be honest in your dealings and not swindle anyone. These have resulted from hundreds of years of disputes which have been dealt with through using common sense and the opinions of ordinary people. They are the only limitations on you, and if you don't want to abide by them, then you need to go to some isolated place and stay away from other people. Many people think that there are hundreds of other laws which they have to keep, and new ones every other day, but that is not so. Those other things are called statutes, and keeping them is optional for you, the human, but they are not optional for your fictitious straw man, and that is why the people who benefit from those things want to persuade you to represent your straw man and so become subject to all of their invented restrictions and charges. If you knew that they were optional, would you agree to 1. Give most of your earnings away in taxes and similar charges? 2. Pay to own a vehicle? 3. Pay to own a television set? 4. Pay to drive on roads which were built with your money? 5. Be forced to join armed services if you are told to? 6. Send an army which is supposed to represent you, into another country to murder innocent people there? Were you ever told that these things are optional? If you agree to represent your straw man, then these things become binding on you. These are some of the statutes which politicians keep inventing in order to make you poor, make them and their 6 friends rich, and keep you in a position where you have to do everything they say, no matter how much that harms you and does away with your natural rights and freedom. But, says somebody, we elect a government to represent us and so we have to do what they say. After all, they have our best interests at heart, don't they? Well, that is a nice thought, but is it actually true? No, it isn't. You think that you elect politicians to represent you in your government, but that is not what you actually do. That is part of a very carefully fostered illusion intended to keep you in your place and giving most of your earnings away, typically, 80% of all you earn. Part of the secret is that what is supposed to be your government is actually a privately owned, for-profit company, and all that you do when voting is help choose the serving officers inside the company. It will never make the slightest difference to what happens in the future, as the company policy and actions are controlled by the owners of the company and they are not influenced in any way whatsoever by what you want. Think this is far-fetched? Then check it out via Dun & Bradstreet or any of the other places which records the setting up and performance of the 160 million commercial companies worldwide. When you do that, you will discover that, for example, the House of Commons is a commercial for-profit company, number UC 2,279,443. The Labour Party is a commercial company which trades under the name of Alistair Darling MP. The House of Lords, which is the highest court in the land, is a private company. The United Kingdom Corporation Limited, formerly known as the United Kingdom plc and which never complied with the law which requires it to file its financial records, is also a private company. The Ministry of Justice DUNS number 22549-8526, Directors, Lord Falconer of Thoroton is a private company set up in the year 1600. The Bank of England is a private company, as is every court and every police force, and even the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry is a company and not a person. For example, check out the entry at https://www.second.gov/cgibin/browse-edgar. Company equals United plus Kingdom and owner equals exclude and action equals get company. It gets even more ridiculous when you discover that the Devon and Cornwall Police is a company which has been taken over by a company owned by IBM, which has paid an annual budget of £256,800,000 taken from members of the public. Gilbert and Sullivan would have loved this reality as a script for one of their comedies. Lancashire County Council was incorporated as a company, IPO 0666C, in 2002. Its registered office was 3rd floor, Christ Church Precinct, County Hall, Preston, and it was completely dissolved on 25th of January 2008, and all of its assets and liabilities were transferred on 12th of November 2007 to another company, the Blues and Twos Credit Union Limited, whose registered address is Lancashire Police Headquarters, P.O. Box 77, Hutton, Preston. Do you by any chance get the feeling that you are being taken for a ride here? Just in case you are not aware of it, the purpose of any commercial for-profit company or corporation is to make money for its owners and shareholders, if there are any. The people whom you think of as the government don't do anything which earns money. Instead, they take money from you, and their main job is to make sure that you don't realize that they are in the same position as IBM, which takes away a cool £256 million of your money every year. So, why all the pretense of there being a genuine government which you elect and who serve you? They don't want you to understand that they are just running a company which produces nothing of any worth, something like a betting shop, where almost every customer loses money, and wake up to the fact that, unlike what you have been told all your life, this is all optional and you don't need to play their rip-off game any longer unless you want to. They want you to be so burdened down with paying them money and working so hard and so long that you don't have the time, money or energy to stop and think about what is happening to you and your family. They are desperate to stop you from just walking away from their scam, and so they make every effort to connect you with the fiction which is your straw man, because fictitious entities like commercial companies can't have any dealing with a real man or a real woman. They can only deal with another fiction like your straw man, and it is essential that they fool you into believing that you have to act on behalf of your straw man, which you don't. They have a number of well-proven methods of distracting you and keeping you from finding out. They want you to see a great deal of entertainment, not because there is anything wrong with entertainment, but while you are watching it you will not be asking awkward questions. Also, they are very careful that most entertainment reinforces their make-believe world and makes it appear to be the real world where everyone is under the government. Police officers uphold the law, taxes are essential in order to keep things going, and things which are said to be bad for you are taxed heavily, not to make money, but supposedly, to encourage you to avoid those things. You will notice that they keep saying that their invented statutes are the law, which they most certainly are not, but if they say it often enough, people start believing it and never think to question what they say. They also have another very effective technique, and that is fear. They want you to be afraid. Afraid of imaginary terrorists. Afraid of disasters. Afraid of new diseases. Afraid of foreign countries. Afraid of the economy doing badly and inflation rising. If you doubt this, then take a look at the news and count the number of positive, uplifting news items, and the number of negative or depressing news items. It doesn't take much in the way of research to see the very heavy negative bias in the news. The reason behind this is to make you feel that you need a government and an army to protect you from these supposed dangers. It is easy to keep the news items biased that way, because all of the major news agencies and media outlets in the world are owned by only 5 or 6 privately owned commercial companies.